Welcome back to another Rest, Eat, Move podcast. This is Matt. I got Chris again, virtual studio, which is great because he's more relaxed and having fun up north. But today we're going to talk about something that you may not care about or you may care a lot about. And I think there's more to this conversation than just the symptoms or do you have it or don't you have it. And we're going to talk about acid reflux. Acid reflux affects about 20% of the United States, adults specifically. If you start breaking that number down, that's 75 million people approximately. Acid reflux could be GERD. Acid reflux, maybe before it's considered acid reflux, could be indigestion, heartburn. And so we're going to talk about everything acid reflux, why it's on the rise, how to improve it, what it is, what it could mean for your health in the long run. And as always, how do we stop the train, reroute it, and help the body heal itself? So Dad, welcome in. We're going to talk about acid reflux today. I remember as a young kid watching you do your presentations and you'd talk about acid reflux and you talk about Tums, and it's a funny conversation because it's so real. There's a couple things we'll talk about that are like the comedy part of it. I remember Larry the Cable Guy used to be the title sponsor for Prilosec. And you think, yeah, that is funny. You know, having too many tacos and beers and just take this and you feel okay. But it's leading to so many other issues. And it's, in my opinion, when I speak, it's the most preventable medication, if you want to call it a disease, symptom that we deal with. Yet I would say it's the first symptom that gets people on a medication path that they don't ask the right questions. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What's your opinion on acid reflux?
I think you nailed a whole bunch of them right there. But back in the day, I remember when I was a young kid, that was on TV all the time. I remember watching Lawrence Welk with my grandmother, and they had Alka-Seltzer, and they'd have plop, plop, fizz, fizz. You still remember the taglines, but I didn't really understand what it was, but it's alkaline. And so when you took that, it helped with acid reflux, and the list went on and on and on. And then I used to bring out a Tums shaker, and you and I have done this before. We went to the grocery store and you look at the digestive aisle, and the digestive aisle is a block long, and then Tums everywhere. And then I was looking at it one day and there's 12 different flavors, and it actually had a gripper on it. So I'm thinking, are really people changing up the flavors of their Tums? Or you look at Alka-Seltzer, and it's a major problem. But as you mentioned, a lot of people don't really look at it as it's like a baby problem. It's a small problem. And reality is it's the beginning. And when you start having these problems with digestion, gut health, it leads to just a cascade of so much. And as you mentioned at the very end, it's the thing that I target at the very beginning when I'm working with people. Like, okay, the goal is we need to get off this and we need to change what you're doing. And it's very, very preventable and reversible.
I have a clip of that plop, plop, fizz, fizz, whatever year that was. That's TV heyday of commercials. That's probably the largest advertising agency creating that commercial and the little cartoon character. And I wish I had the actual script, but it's like plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. But before that, and if you listen clearly, it's like, too much candy, too much pop, going too fast, work too hard. And it's telling you that your lifestyle created this. But the mistake is thinking that the solution is a medication or a supplement or a thing that they're selling over the counter. But I didn't grow up with that commercial. By the time Alka-Seltzer, they cut right to the chase. You have acid reflux, just take this, right? That commercial back then, it was so interesting that the words they use, it's talking about stress and overworking and lack of sleep and not moving your body and eating unhealthy. That's what's causing it. So if you want to, and we'll make a case today why you really should want to.
And the
It's
other
really
thing,
simple.
that commercial, they made it actually look like it's tastes good. And so it was like a effervescent, you drop it in there and you're like, wow, that looks pretty enticing. And that had to be in the 50s and 60s. That's how long ago that was. And then if you look at Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy and Trading Places, before they go out into the pit for trading, they were all the
Chewing on
traders just pounding whether it was the Tums type of thing, but yeah, so it's everywhere. But when I sit down and talk to people, and the same thing you do, or we're doing seminars and conferences, it's people don't think twice about it. Oh, I just have acid reflux. Like it's just that's okay, and I'm dealing with it.
So let's talk about the meds. You have 3 categories of meds. You have a proton pump inhibitor, PPI. That's going to be your Prilosec, omeprazole, Nexium. Then you have your H2 blockers. That's going to be more for the GERD, a more serious form of acid reflux. And then you have your antacids, which are going to be the Tums, the Alka-Seltzers, the Rolaids, the Pepcid. So these are some of the medications out there, and you think, okay, well, what's the issue? We'll get into the issue in a second. But really what we're talking about today is pH imbalance. It's really simple. If you have acid reflux, it's a very high likelihood that you have a pH imbalance in the body. And symptomatically, what is showing up, you're not in balance, and so you're either having that indigestion or that GERD or that burning in your esophagus. And we've all had a little bit of heartburn or indigestion based on foods or eating too much. Eating too much is a big one. And if you think about it, over the last 20, 30 years, why has it increased so much? We're eating a lot more. That could be a big reason. The foods we're eating are specifically. But I'd like to break this down before we get into the side effects of the medication and how to improve it. If we just call this pH imbalance, and we say, okay, how are we going to improve the pH? I'm going to look at this as a 3-legged stool. There's 3 legs: stress, the actual foods, the pH of the foods and what they do to the body, and then weight, obesity, lack of movement. So these are the 3 stools: stress, pH, and lack of movement. And so what we're trying to do when someone has acid reflux, and in general, we're trying to alkalize the body. If the body's too acidic, again, this is the most perfect medication to illustrate what's the problem. We're too acidic, hence acid reflux. So how do we start improving the pH of the body? Talk to the listeners about this.
So just real quickly, you have an alkaline side of the equation. That's when you have better digestion. So if you ever have a pool or you're growing a garden, or people just get that understanding that if the body's too acidic and your chlorine is too high, your suit's going to burn. It's going to change color. So it's no different in the human body. You have a pH balance, and then the body's going to do everything in its power to keep it in balance. And so it's going to change respiration, your mineral consumption. So we have these things called buffering minerals. So when the body gets too acidic, your body starts using these resources to bring it back into balance. It does everything in its power to do that. And some of the buffering minerals are going to be magnesium. We've talked a lot about that, the mineral of relaxation, calcium. People think about bone health. We have really unhealthy bones, and we still have the highest consumption of calcium. So we have to look back and say, okay, we have a problem with pH being in balance. And so, as you mentioned, the most acidic thing is stress. And so that's why when you see the Trading Places and Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, it's the stress. So we're moving too quickly. We don't sleep like we used to. The list goes on and on and on. And then again, you talked about what we eat and drink. We drink some of the most acidic beverages on the planet, coffee being one of them. But when you get into alcohol and energy drinks, and the list goes on, soda pop, that all makes the body, and then processed foods.
Coffee compared to some of these drinks look pretty alkalizing. You think about energy drinks at a pH of 1.5 and some of these new concoctions that are pre-workouts and post-workouts and energy all mixed into one with some creatine and protein powder. And, how could it be bad for you? It glows in the dark. Just completely, if you were pouring gasoline on a garden, everything would die. It's the same thing. You pour it in your gut, and next thing, the gut is completely inflamed.
But I think what you're saying there is that they're not connecting the dots. So when the dots aren't connected, I'm just going to start doing like Larry the Cable Guy. I'm just going to take these things so I can do the things I want to do. In reality is over time, that's going to beat the heck out of you.
Last time, I believe we were talking about a gentleman that was asking you, what's this going to do for me? I don't have any issues. I think a lot of people think beverages, if we're going down that path real quick, I think people think beverages are kind of like a no big deal. They're not going to have much impact, right? A lot of them don't have a lot of calories. And we think calories are the real problem, but I can put anything if it's in a drink. That's the mistake. I would say what we drink is causing a big percentage of the issues we have. Alcohol being one of them, but if you're putting an energy drink in your body every day, or you're consuming too much protein powder, or you're drinking these pre and post workouts because you don't have any energy and trying to get jacked up, that's really causing some big issues.
Well, I think one of the things, just real quickly while you're talking about this, but talk about creatine, that everybody you come in contact with, I get these. My sister even reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm listening to this podcast and they're talking about women, that all women need to be taking creatine." We're not talking about what it does to your kidneys and your GFR, glomerular filtration rate, whatever, but it's all related. It's all related to this thing of pH being out of balance. And as you mentioned, you throw protein, which is an amino acid, energy drinks, they use amino acids. And then you look at creatine, it's putting lots of stress in the gut. So now the garden, which is the gut, is out of balance.
So let's stay on stress. I think that was a great point, by the way, but let's talk about stress. So when someone's thinking about their pH, let's just say they're having acid reflux. I think the last thing maybe they're thinking about is their psychological, emotional self, their mind as the cause. Let's talk about stress real quickly. And I would argue stress is one of the leading causes of digestive impairments in our society, including gluten intolerances, IBS. You could go into some of these autoimmune issues where a lot of the immune system is controlled in the gut. But when it comes to acid reflux and you think about stress, okay, you're running too hot, too fast, fight or flight. I like to show this diagram in my presentations called the autonomic nervous system. You got two sides, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Everyone in my audience knows what fight or flight is. They know it, they've heard it, they understand it. Some of them think like this is part of life, and it is. But I show them the same other half, which is taught in the same day that you'd learn fight or flight. And nobody has a clue or remembers this side. This is called the parasympathetic, the break. When you look at the science of the parasympathetic or the tagline, it says rest and digest. And most people don't know that, but it tells you right there why we're having so many digestive issues, including acid reflux. If you are not resting, which is, in my opinion, the opposite of stress for most people, then you're probably not going to have good digestion. If you're not going to have good digestion, and one of the first symptoms of bad digestion is acid reflux. I think for some folks, it might be actually lucky that they get acid reflux, because if 20 million people or 20% of our society is struggling with acid reflux, I would say 60 to 70% of our society is struggling with some type of gut health. Now, some of that gut health is a lot more complicated and subtle than having that heartburn. So I think stress is a big deal, specifically because if you're in that fight or flight, if you're always on that cortisol stress side, you're highly likely to have poor digestion because you're not in that rest and digest state. What do you want to add to that?
Again, I think you said at the very beginning is that people are not even aware of it. One of the things I wrote in chapter one of the later chapters in my Rest, Eat, Move book is that your body's always talking back to you, but we're not taught how to listen. How can stress affect my gut? So we're just not connecting the dots. And that's why when we talk to people about nutrition, we always start with the rest first, because if you don't get the rest component right, you're not going to have good digestion, good absorption. And hence acid reflux for many people, it begins with that fight or flight. The fight or flight button is on. Fear, doesn't matter what's real or not. If we feel threatened, that button's going on, and then your parasympathetic nervous system that's called rest and digest is going to be sitting there over in the corner, not being active at all. So again, it speeds everything up, everything heats up, and that's the problem. So you have to have that recognition that if I'm running hot all the day long, then I'm throwing other things on top of the gas. So you could see how this is just a perfect storm. And then you're going to throw something that completely blocks it, whether a proton pump inhibitor can lead into a prescription medication like a Nexium, which is everywhere. And people don't think twice about it. And then now we got sleep issues and everything going downstream is affected. So stress is where I always begin with all the people I work with that have acid reflux or some type of digestive health issue. That's where we begin, because they've never been taught this stuff.
And so breathing shallowly, breathing when you're stressed, that's going to be a very acidic breathing. Think about it. You're holding in more carbon dioxide than you're inhaling oxygen. You're holding your breath. You're shallow breathing. You're not fully eliminating. So diaphragmatic belly breathing, slowing down your breath. These things, when we talk about these things higher level, they have a much more downstream big impact if you get into the scientific level. But so the first pillar, when you're talking about acid reflux, you got to get stress under control. Second pillar is pH balance, or how do you alkalize the body through food? And so let's start with this critical, I would say, mind shift. If you're going to write anything down, acid equals inflammation. And so when we're putting acidic foods in the body, including having too much stress, you will create inflammation. And so some of the symptoms of acid reflux it's just inflammation, whether it's in the esophagus or in the stomach or a combination of everything, even in your mouth. If your mouth, and we can do these tests where you're taking saliva, if that mouth is acidic, you're probably not producing a lot of saliva. Next thing you know, you're not breaking down food. And we've talked about this a lot, and you talked about the pool, but you talked about the acid is going to burn the soup. The alkaline side, you don't want this in a pool, but the alkaline side grows life. And I think that's what we want to understand is we want to grow more life in the gut. We want to have those prebiotics and probiotics, and you think about why are pro and prebiotics so prevalent to take as a supplement? Well, we're pouring gasoline down the hatch and it just burns everything. And so we got to add it back in. So how do we alkalize?
I think the first thing, the easiest thing is to start getting hydrated, because if you're dehydrated, your body's going to be more acidic. And so for many people, you start out with 50 ounces of water a day as the minimum. And so that's where I begin with all my clients. Okay, you can't drink 2 pots of coffee and think you're going to be okay. So the key is understanding what beverages are they consuming. That's how we start. Make sure you're drinking enough water. And then from there, we escalate it up a little bit. So now we're saying, okay, let's get real serious about this. Let's add a lemon to your water in the morning. Lemons by digestion are very alkalizing. And so back to your pre-pro and symbiotic type foods, lemon is going to be a symbiotic, means it's both. It's a pre and a probiotic. So then I start loading up. We start looking at water with lemon, make it simple, maybe even to make ice cubes. We do that a lot, that make just ice cubes and drop them in your water, and do that once a day. So again, or you suck on an ice cube of a lemon later on. But that's where we begin, is looking at beverages, what beverage you're consuming, what are you not consuming. And then we really help them understand that what foods, we're using the food target, what foods are going to be more alkalizing. And again, more from the source. generally a food coming from the source is going to be more alkalizing than a processed food that's going to be more acidic. And then understanding if you're taking carbohydrates out of your body's going to move over to the acid side. So a lot of people we come in contact with are cutting out their fruits and some of these things that make the body more alkaline. So again, we start looking at that. So it really gets back to understanding carbohydrates and make the body more alkaline. And many people, when they want to lose weight, the first thing they go to is they cut out their healthy carbohydrates. And most part of that is they're cutting out fruit. So I help them understand the power of food and how, again, people say all the time, I heard this many times from the medical world, that it doesn't really matter what you eat. What are you talking about? How does Nexium, how does Prilosec, how does Alka-Seltzer affect your pH? It's going into the digestive tract. So everybody understand that what you eat is amazingly powerful on top of what you drink. And then they start seeing some amazing results.
I think the real scientific doctor approach is their argument is you can't change the blood pH with the foods you eat. Let's just pause there. We haven't talked about blood yet, but we do know with certainty, if you just put Nexium in the body or Prilosec or Alka-Seltzer, the pH changes. Now that's not the blood. That's the lining, the mucus, the body, the urine, other fluids. But here's another thing. If you don't think it works, you have acid reflux, we'll just stop right here. If you have acid reflux and you take quarter of a lemon, first thing in the morning, squeeze it in your water, you won't have the symptoms of acid reflux, or maybe those symptoms will be much more mild first couple days.
Well, so again, back to, let's stand this for just a second. So when people say in the human body, your body has checks and balances to keep your pH where it should be, or basically we would all die within 30 to 45 minutes. It's an amazing thing the human body does. But after a while, it just yells uncle. So the blood pH will not change, or we're not going to be around long. And so the first thing you go to when you go to a hospital, the first thing they're checking out is all your blood work. And a big part of that is your blood pH. But over time, your body starts to break down in lots of different ways. And so that's why we have to understand that your body's crying, I have problems, everybody. And you just keep masking it. You keep throwing the mud on the fire. And that's the issue. So that's the big deal. But then we move into what's the most alkalizing of all nutrients. We just talked about water, lemon, but it's chlorophyll. And so I just saw you just before we hopped on here, you're taking some spirulina chlorella, or you're taking, I had my 5 ice cubes of frozen wheatgrass this morning. If I have clients coming in and they understand this, I get them to do this, it's disappeared. And they say the same thing all the time. Why wouldn't our society be educating everybody about consuming chlorophyll foods, such as wheatgrass, such as spirulina chlorella, such as greens? It's almost impossible to have acid reflux. And again, we're all not eating perfect. We're going to whatever and eating whatever. But that's the key, is understanding that maybe occasionally you might have it, but if it's a chronic thing, then now we got some serious issues and again, going downstream.
Yeah, I'll say this, and we're going to get into the meds in a second. I've never not had someone get off their acid reflux medication. As simple as lemon in their water, and if that doesn't work, then there's the chlorophyll foods combination. Those two things are usually unbelievable. And then you can go deeper, and there's coconut oil and how it soothes the esophagus, and drinking more water and making some upgrades and I got 15 steps for you that I'm confident are going to work. And you're probably going to only need one if you don't want to go down that medication. So we're going to alkalize the body. That's pillar number 2. Pillar number 3 is, we know obesity, being overweight, leads to acid reflux. And I like to think of it a little bit different, as you didn't become overweight or obese as your first symptom. So the body changed, slowed down, metabolism got maybe a little gummed up, And then the weight started to come on. Maybe it was 5 pounds a year, 10 pounds a year. Maybe you had some stressful event in your life or whatever it was. It didn't happen overnight. And that cascade of events also is going to screw up your digestion, your metabolism, and might lead to gut health. And the other thing is when you have that excess weight, you stop moving your body. You're not moving as well. And I think movement is an overlooked part of digestion. And you like to really talk about this a lot, especially when you think about animals. Every animal knows that it needs to have a good digestion or a bowel movement or get things moving. It needs to move the body. Humans, we just think you could if I sit in this chair for 24 hours straight, I should have a good bowel movement or I should have good digestion. That's not how we're designed. We have a lymphatic system that doesn't have a pump that needs to have movement. You have the glymphatic system that happens when you sleep. So talk to us about movement and the relation to gut health and specifically acid reflux.
I think you just hit it that it's common sense. If I'm taking my dog Floyd for a walk in the morning, it's a have to, and again, we don't have to get crazy with this, but human beings, we need to move the body. It's not only for the body, it's what it does for the mind. So it's a cascade of benefits. But if you can get people to start moving, think about sleeping for a minute. Rarely do people have bowel movements or want to have a bowel movement when they're sleeping. It's just how the human body's set up. But as soon as we get up in the morning, we start moving around, then the body's going to start to eliminate the way it should eliminate. So part of this whole thing is when you think about movement, whether it's our urine, it's the bowels, the bowel, the urine, the lymph, the lungs, the skin, it's all part of elimination. And this acid reflux is a part of the body's processes and how it eliminates. So movement's a big deal. And again, you don't have to be a physical fitness expert by any means, but we need to move the body on a regular basis to help. And we know when we're breathing correctly, everything affects your pH. So back to the pH. When we're not moving, body becomes more acidic. When we are moving in a correct manner, the body's going to be more alkalizing. So there's many, many benefits of moving the body, and one of those is better gut health.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. When you move the body, you become less acidic, and I don't think people connect that. And it's how you breathe, it's how you eliminate, it's sweating, and the body wants to renew. I think you've said this several times in the past. Is renewal is what the body's really trying to do. So when you're thinking about anti-aging or disease management, how do you renew the body? I don't think there's a better way where you can physically have control over how the body renews. Sweat, cells, pH, elimination from top to bottom. And when you actually wash the mind, next thing you know, you're managing stress. It's almost like a complete circle. And if you only try to do one part of it.
The lymphatic system, it's a sewer system for the human body, but it doesn't have a pump. And so when you move your body, your arms, you're walking, you're moving your arm, mini trampoline, the list goes on in calisthenics, just moving, you're stimulating the lymphatic system, and they're all connected. So when you think about that, like when you look at digestion, it begins in the mouth, goes down the esophagus into the stomach, the duodenum, the small and large intestines. Well, it's all based on, again, back to if my pH is out of balance, or I have this acid reflux type symptoms, the symptom's out of balance. So it's knocking on the door, hitting you in the head, telling you that something's not right, and then we want to mask it. And reality is, we should say, well, let's stop for a second. And we know long term, whether it's Barrett's or there's lots of issues that will happen if we do not address these symptoms. And again, people can get away with it, but when you really dive into deep, when they start having other major problems, it all basically starts from, think about blood pressure for a minute. For many people put on a blood pressure medication, you start with a simple diuretic. Like, hey, that's not a big deal. It's a good little diuretic or this or that. And then it moves into angiotensin drug or a calcium channel blocker, or maybe it moves in maybe into a beta blocker. It's no different than acid reflux. It starts with something simple like a plop, plop, fizz, fizz, or a Tums. And then it keeps moving down because you're not going to be able to be controlled. So now we're going to go to the prescription medications and proton pump inhibitors. And now we have major problems such as sleep issues, neurotransmitters, mental health, and we're not connecting the dots.
I think that's why they call most of the diuretics water pills, because it sounds so. It's a water pill. It's a pill to help with water. So as we round the corner here, let's talk about these medications, whether it's the proton pump inhibitor, H2 blocker, indigestion. We're going to start asking better questions. First question we're going to ask is, what's the side effect? And you love to say, what's the effect? Every medication is going to have an effect. And I like to think there's a side effect to these medications. And the big side effect, when you get into the granular details, and there's a great book. What was the book written by the pharmacist?
Oh, Drug Muggers by Susie Cohen.
Yeah, Drug Muggers. It's a great book. It's all about what medications do to the body. If you're looking to go deeper, that's a great book. But one of the minerals that's leached out when you take an acid reflux medication, and it's the whole category, is this mineral called zinc. Has to do with pH, but let's just get very specific. It leaches out a mineral called zinc that the body needs. This mineral, zinc, is needed in the body for many different mechanisms. Through COVID, we all were awoken that you need zinc for your immune system. So that's a big one. Acid reflux medication is going to lower zinc. You're probably going to have a compromised immune system. Yeah, everyone's like, well, I can't really see the immune system. I don't know if that's true. Let's go to what everyone really starts to light up. And I had a keynote presentation last week, really early in the morning. And I got them excited early in the morning because I said one of the side effects of acid reflux is it leaches out zinc, and zinc is the raw material to build your sex hormones. And so how many people listening want to have good sex hormones? How many want to thrive, feel their vitality and energy? And yes, everything to do with sex, but more about energy and metabolism and strength and endurance, thriving. And everybody raises their hand for that. Everybody wants that. One of the side effects for these medications, it leaches out zinc. And so here's what happens. This is usually the first medication in a cascade effect. So 2, 3, 5 years, you take acid reflux, indigestion, Tums, Prilosec, the purple pill. And the next thing you know, you get a physical and your doctor wants to put you on a hormonal replacement or low T or sleep aid or cholesterol or gut health or whatever, the blood pressure, because we didn't ask the right question. And the right question would be, why do I have acid reflux? And I like to say that when I have a symptom, it's sometimes a good thing where you say, my lifestyle maybe caused that symptom. Now, not always. There's genetics. But we've been doing this long enough. Most people's acid reflux, and I'm not going to put a number to it, but I would say a high percentage is not genetic related. It's lifestyle related. And so that means, why do we have acid reflux? Something that we're doing in our lifestyle is creating that. So that's the first question. What can I do? Before the medication, before we say, okay, I want to go down the path, hopefully I made a good argument. You go on this medication, it will go to another medication. So we have to start and block the cycle. And the big question is, when we talk about, are you able, are you willing, do you want to improve it? And that's a question you get to ask. So when it comes to medication, I think a lot of people aren't aware that there's these side effects that lead to other medications. And it's no wonder that the average person is filling 12 prescriptions over the age of 18. And not different, but 12 prescriptions, we're over-medicated. And acid reflux is, like I said, 20% of society is usually one of the first medications people start on that lead to 3 to 5 medications next 10 to 15 years. What else do you got on medications?
let's just stumble back to what you said, which is really gold. I think, again, knowledge is power, and wisdom is applying the knowledge into real life. And if you don't wake people up and really get them to understand what's their why, what's their driver, is that you mentioned, okay, so let's just go back in time just for a second here. You started down this acid reflux medication. I sometimes do timelines. So really, let's go back into your life and say, okay, when you started this, then what happened? You're telling me you're leaching out zinc and selenium and all these wonderful trace minerals that help with the building of testosterone for both men and women. We also are leaching out this thing called magnesium. We're definitely affecting serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that makes us happy. Also is the raw material that makes melatonin, our sleep hormone. So you start saying, let's just step back for a second and just have this open dialogue about this. And what I find many times, people are like, do you think this could be causing my erectile dysfunction for many men? Or do you think this is causing me to not sleep? Now they're getting curious and saying, of course, the body's telling you for a long time. How long have you had acid reflux? 10 years. So I think what you mentioned is really, really powerful to create that awareness that maybe, just maybe, this little purple pill or this proton pump inhibitor, whatever I'm taking, is making all these other things worse. And so let's not get off some of these amazingly powerful medications. Let's start with getting you with a plan to decrease your acid reflux and then get your gut healthier. And I think that's what gets people excited. Now we're uncovering the buried treasure, that what's really the problem and why is all this showing up? And it starts with that water pill, the acid reflux.
And we talk about medications, whether it's cholesterol, type 2 diabetes. These are prescription medications. It's interesting. Prilosec and Nexium, Ozempiral, or how the generic, those started as prescriptions. Yet then they became so common that they had to do over the counter. And so neither one of us are your doctor, your physician, or telling you to get off medications. But I think both of us are here very confidently. This is a digestive issue. And you don't need to be extremely worried about this specific symptom. We got to go uncover the root cause. And the root cause is you're too acidic. And whether that's stress related, food related, exercise related, or usually combination of all three, that's what we're going to do today, is leave with the knowledge. I'll let you wrap up with a couple points and then we'll get everyone out of here.
So as you mentioned, if you just took it really just simple, let me give you a couple steps. Number one is we're going to start breathing through the nose, using your belly, your diaphragm, and slowing it down. Can you practice that for 1 or 2 minutes a day? That's a great way to reset, calm the mind, relax the body. Number two is I'm going to start using my arms, and I'm going to move my body for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, I can start doing more of that. And number three is I'm going to really get into that water of a lemon, maybe some foods that are high in chlorophyll, maybe look at what I'm currently eating. Maybe I'm doing protein powders or energy drinks, or maybe I'm drinking too much coffee. But it's that simple. That's how simple I start with people is let's do these 3 things, and they're all really doable. And then we can get more and more pile on. If that's, I already know this like the back of my hand, but page 125 in my Rest, Eat, Move book is the gut biotic chart. Then I bring those to the party. That's the pre, pro, and symbiotic foods. So if you can do these basic things, work on your breath, move your body a little bit, and then really reevaluate what you're eating and drinking and start making a couple changes, this can be a thing of the past.
So I thought what you said was really how I wanted to wrap up. So I think this is a good place. knowledge is power. I think we've given you some knowledge, hopefully, but wisdom is taking that knowledge and turning it into action. And so your job is, I guarantee you know somebody that has struggled or maybe just started struggling with acid reflux or indigestion or heartburn. Share this knowledge. And now if you're the one that's struggling with it, or you're feeling like you've gone down a couple paths, now you have the opportunity to take that wisdom, to take that knowledge that you now have and turn it into action. You got to be curious. Hopefully we explored some of that curiosity maybe you haven't thought about. But at the end of the day, it's this simple. Acid equals inflammation. And in many cases, inflammation is going to make the body more acidic. And so if we want to improve this symptom, and we talked about acid reflux today, we got to alkalize the body. How you breathe, how you're managing stress, how you're moving daily, the foods you're eating. And so just to recap, breathe through the nose, slow down a little bit, manage that stress. Feel your feet underneath you. Move your arms, move daily. Got to get the body moving, lymphatic system. Water with lemon. Try that for 2 weeks. Shoot us an email. I guarantee you won't have acid reflux. Just doing the lemon in the water. And then foods high in chlorophyll. And as I wrap up today, if you're struggling with this, we're here to help. And I challenge you, if you are struggling with this, take some action, give it 2 weeks, and send us an email either way. Email Matt, Chris, I didn't believe you. I tried it. It's working. Matt, Chris, I tried the lemon and water. I still don't have the relief I need. We got a bazillion other steps other than these. These are the big ones that really can help you. But as always, you have the power to feel your best, and you have the power, in my opinion, to not have acid reflux. We'll see you again next time.